Okay, now that we know how to graph in standard form and what standard form looks like, I'm going to show you how to get things in the standard form with integer coefficients. That means there should never be a fraction, and you should never start out negative. And if you have things that says, hey, what does this look like in standard form? You're able to translate it and turn it into standard form. Just like what we did with slope-intercept when we had something like this, y minus 2 equals 3 times x plus 1, we were able to translate that into slope-intercept. That means getting y alone. Today you're going to be able to translate things into proper standard form. So here's some properties of standard form. The x and y are on the left. Left side, maybe I should be complete, of the equal sign. Okay? They always should be. If they're not, you make them go there. There are never any fractions. Standard form should not have any fractions. And it gives you fractions at first, and it says, hey, turn this into proper standard form, so you need to get rid of the fractions. And we've done that. We've done that when we were doing our solving unit. And we always want x to start out positive. If x isn't positive, then we need to change everything to make x start out positive. When you hear the vocabulary word integer coefficients, that just means get rid of fractions. An integer is defined as negative infinity, dot, 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 negative 2, negative 1, 0, 1, 2, dot, 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 infinity. There are never any fractions involved. Okay, so when I say integer coefficients, that means you make sure I have no fractions. And if you recall, to get rid of fractions, we multiply, because fraction is division. 2 divided by 5, 2/5. And if I want to get rid of the 5, what I do is times through by 5, and it gets rid of it, and I'm left with 2. So that's our goal today. We want to get rid of any fraction. How do we get rid of fraction? We multiply everything through by the denominator. Just don't forget to multiply everything. And that's where some students, I think, forget. Okay, so I want to write this first one in proper standard form. So there's 3 things I should look for, kind of 4. I want to make sure x and y are on the left. Are x and y on the left? Sure are. Okay, second thing, I want to make sure x is before y. Yep, sure is. So I don't have to do anything. Third thing, get rid of any fractions. So do I have a fraction?
You do indeed.
I sure do. So what do I need to times through by?
4.
4. So my goal is to times everything. Look at, I yelled at you there. Everything by 4. Every single term I need to times through by 4. That gets rid of this. And I have 1x plus 12y equals 20. But I'm not fully simplified because my 1 is really stressed out that it's out. So we just got to let it hang. X plus 12y equals 20.
Oh my gosh, I can't wait.
That is proper standard form. So let me just summarize what I did. The first thing I did, x and y on left. I just checked. Are my x and y on the left-hand side? That's the first thing I did. The second thing that I did is x before y. I asked myself that. So these are all questions I ask myself all the time. I always ask myself this, and I've been doing it a long time. So you should ask yourself this too. The third thing I ask myself, fractions, question mark? That's what I say, fractions, question mark? And if there are fractions, then I get rid of those fractions by timesing everything by the denominator. And then I ask myself, but you didn't really hear me ask myself, but I did, in my head I really did. The fourth thing I say is x negative. Because if x is negative, it's kind of like we want to start our day out positive. We want to start our equation out positive. So if x is negative, we make it we say, hey, stop that group attack. We get it positive. Okay.
Quit it.
Okay, those are the 4 questions I always ask myself all the time. Next one, 4x plus 2/3 y equals 1. Are x and y on the left? That's my first question. X and y on the left, yep. Second question, is x before y? Sure is, x is before y. That's nice. Third, are there fractions, question mark? Do you see fraction? Huh? Say it again.
Yes, I do indeed.
How do I get rid of this fraction?
Yeah,
I times everything by 3. If you forget to times something by 3, your equation is not going to be correct. It will be completely wrong. So I get 12x plus 2y, right? 2y equals 3. And then I asked this in my head again and didn't explicitly say it out loud. Is my x positive or negative? I better show you an example with x being negative at first. So you're going to make one more example in your notes, okay? And it's going to be, I know, 3y minus 1/4 x equals 5/4. That's a great one. Don't you think that's a great one?
No.
I do. Okay, I always ask the same 4 questions. I'm going to actually make it look like this. Are x and y on the left? Yep. I'm going to question 2. Is x before y?
No.
Nope. I better change that, so I'm going to plus a negative. And then I'm going to flip it. It's negative 1/4 x plus 3y equals 5/4. Okay, that was question number 2. Question number 3, fractions, question mark? Yep, sure do. So how do I get rid of my fractions?
Times -4.
Times by, I'm going to first do times by 4, but I like what you thought right away, Zach. That's actually what I do. And then that cancels that 4. I have negative 1x plus 12y equals 5. Question 4, is x negative? It sure is negative. I don't want it to be negative. I want my equation to start out positive. So, in order to change that, I just divide everything by negative 1. And you get x plus a negative 12y equals negative 5. Don't you love this?
Kind of not really though.
X minus 12y equals negative 5 is your final simplified answer. Alright, so your next learning target today, target number 1 was being able to write equations in proper standard form. So that means that x and y are on the left, and it meant that there was no fractions, and x always starts out positive. You're expected to do that today. Another thing is these horizontal and vertical lines. That means those special slopes, like a 0 slope and an undefined slope. We've briefly talked about that. Kids get this a lot more now that you are exposed to standard form. You know it's going to be a horizontal or vertical line if there's only one variable. Okay, like x equals 3, y equals 2. Something like that. That means it's going to either be horizontal or vertical line. What we want to do is just translate it to standard form quick. For example, I want to know, is y equal to, does that look like this or does that look like this? And it's a struggle that kids all the way up through college have. Now that you know standard form, you could say 0x plus y equals 2. Do you agree with that?
I do indeed.
Because I have no x's, so you can make a 0x term. And then you can do your intercepts. Right? My x-intercept, 0 times x is 2. That means I don't even cross the x-axis. And then my y-intercept is 2. And if you were to graph that, I don't cross the x-axis. This is like non-existent because there was no x there. It was non-existent. So I cross my y-axis at 2. I don't ever cross my x-axis, so it's going to be a horizontal line.
Horizontal.
Let me show you another one. X equals -4. So you could write x plus no y's equal a -4. My x-intercept then is -4. My y-intercept, there was none. There was none because there was no y term at first. Okay, non-existent. So if you were to graph this, you have x at -4, approximately right there, and you don't ever cross the y-axis. You don't ever cross it because there is never a y term. So that means it's going to look like this. So in your homework today, it's going to say, tell me if this line is horizontal or vertical. And if you get confused, because a lot of kids think y is tall, so y is always the vertical. But as you can see, a y line is not vertical. A y line is horizontal. One more time. No x terms plus a y term equals 5. My x-intercept would be nothing since I didn't have an x term. My y-intercept would be 5. So if you were to graph this, I cross my y-axis at 5. Pretend that's 5. I don't ever, it's non-existent. The x-axis is non-existent. So it's going to be a horizontal line. Okay? And then the other 3 are redundant. It's the same thing. Same process then. I'm going to just let you know, hey, x means I'd have an x-intercept, no y-intercept. That means I never cross that y line, so it will be a vertical line. Here, another x, I already know is going to be a tall line. Y means that I have a y-intercept at -4. I have no x-intercept. So I have a line at -4 and I never go to the x-axis. It's going to look like this. And word problems. Are you excited for word problems? Our last learning target, I better hurry up. Here's what we do. We assign a variable to the x and y. You put it in standard form, and C is always the total. So here's an example. A media download store sells songs for $1 each and movies for $12. You have $60 to spend. What is an equation and graph that models this? You have to let your x equal something and let your y equal something. I'm going to say x is my song, y is my movie. C is always going to be your total. So I have $1 for each song, 1x, plus $12 for each movie, 12y, and I can spend $60. That's my grand total. So $1 per movie plus $1 per song plus 12 per movie has to equal 60. And then you do your intercepts, x end, y end. So x end is 60, y end, what is that, 5?
Yep.
I can buy 5 movies, and then you could graph it. Oh my goodness, I can't get to 60. Pretend 60 is right here, 5, your graph would look something like that.
Something along those lines, isn't it?
Okay, same thing though, all you do is assign your variable. So let's say you want to buy some pants and some shirts. The pants are $40 each, and your shirts are $15. You have $120 you can spend. Write an equation that models this. X, I'm going to say my X are pants, since it was first. X is pants. Y shirts. Okay? Because those are the things that are changing. Your money you have to spend doesn't change. So you would say 40 for each pants, 40x, plus 15 for each shirt equals the 120 you can spend. Then you can find your intercepts to graph it.